Hi there, my name is Trish Lynch. Welcome to IOHR in London. Thank you for joining us for our Human Rights TV. Two Reuters journalists have been unjustly sentenced to 7 years in prison in Myanmar after investigating the brutal killing of Rohingya Muslims, the world's most persecuted minority. A judge found Wei Lon and Kyaw guilty of breaching a law on state secrets, but the sentence is for many an attack on press freedom. At least 700,000 Rohingya Muslims have fled Myanmar and over 300 villages have been destroyed in the past year. 10,000 Rohingya people have already died. With us today is Kyaw, the chair of the Board of Directors of Justice for Rohingya Minority and the founder and executive director of Burma Human Rights Network, which researches and documents human rights violations. Mr. Wynne, it's great to have you with us today. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me here today.
Now, recently we had the award-winning journalist Ashish Joshi on the show, and he just came back from Myanmar. He shared with us some horrific stories and incredible photographs. And being a journalist there is a dangerous profession.
Absolutely.
Tell me why you think that these two journalists have been given 7 years in prison. What's the real reason?
Authorities realized these two journalists has been discovered these secrets, and they've been trapped, to given some kind of state secrets. Mm-hmm. Actually, they've been trapped, and the policeman, the one who been used, to attract them, these two journalists, for the
so they were framed, really, weren't they?
Absolutely.
They were given these documents by one set of policemen, and then they were arrested by another set.
And the policeman also witnessed during the court hearing. He said there was a trap. He said this. That's why he been punished. His family, the policeman's family, thrown out from the quarter. So he also had been punished for speaking out truth. And these two journalists.
So what's happened to him now?
He's in the jail now.
Oh, he's also in prison.
He's also in prison, and these two journalists, they've been framed.
Yeah.
Because of they discovered the very dangerous, what happened in Rohingya area. Yeah. The military which conducted that mass killings, rapes, and also arson attack and destroying all the villages, which military operations forced to flee nearly 800,000 Rohingyas to Bangladesh. There are so many evidences, and they are not allowed. Many medias are barred from visiting those villages.
After receiving the 7-year sentence, Wei Lon shouted, "I have no fear. I believe in justice, democracy and freedom." Is Myanmar a place where any of these things can flourish?
I think, first of all, I would like to say that these two journalists are extremely brave. Their family has been consistently facing discrimination publicly, calling them traitors, abuse, several different, kind of abuse they're facing. They are very confident because the whole world is behind them. International community, every leaders, every channel, every activist is talking about them. And I think one day they will definitely get the justice, what they deserve.
Wei and Kyaw, they wrote an eye-opening exclusive about this brutal slaughter that we've just spoken about. The Myanmar military have called these men the Bengal terrorists, but in actual fact, they were students and they were fishermen. They were peaceful people. Yeah. Do you think that anybody will ever be held accountable for these murders?
For accountability, from several years, international community has failed. And that brought us here today, that in UN is calling is genocide. If you look at the genocide, it doesn't happen within a few days or within one night. Yeah. It takes several years, and it built up gradually. And so many experts calling it that this is a slow burning genocide, this calling has been neglected, and many times we face that whenever we raise this genocide is happening in Burma. Most of the diplomats, they try to silence us. They don't want to listen it, and they want to tell. They told us that if you talk about genocide, nobody will listen to you.
When we look at the World Press Freedom Index, Myanmar is ranked 137 out of 180, according to Reporters Without Borders. And the Rakhine state is considered an information black hole because nothing is allowed to get out. Why do you think this genocide is so underreported, and what's really happening there that the world isn't seeing and they don't want us to know about?
You see, the military has a very smart plan. When they plan something, they test, right? They do some kind of test. They see what their international reaction. If some reaction come out, they'll calculate how to stop this. What should they use to stop this? Whom should they approach? Media itself. If you look at the 2012, there were several media calling that Rohingyas are burning their home by themselves because they don't want to live in Rakhine state because of the poverty, and they want to move to refugee camps because international community will feed them. So that's a reason they give to the whole Burma, and all Burmese people believe this.
They genuinely do they?
They believe this. So this is a framing. The framing was very successful in Burma, and the propaganda is very strong. So all these media, and who own this media? Owned by the cronies, generals, their sons, their children, their families, their relatives, and their friends. So these media successfully change the perceptions of the people. For example, those international media like Hualong and Joshua Walking, like Reuters and AP, AFP, there are many media, international media. They strong firmly on the right side, and they raised a lot of just like these two journalists did. But you see those media still very vocal, very strong in Burma now.
But the UN has actually named some generals from the Myanmar
6 generals
military, yes, and they have said that they could potentially take them to the International Criminal Court to face prosecution. Do you think this will ever happen?
This should happen immediately, because every nation must do their best to stop genocide in Burma. Why I'm saying that? Because Burma is become a very important and very interesting in Southeast Asia, because Burma has several ethnic minorities, and if you look at other countries, like Southeast Asia has a history of genocide. Yeah, the minorities in those countries have faced so many persecutions and tragedies, and we shouldn't allow this Burma to become example for the perpetrators, predator governments, to punish or to commit crimes to the minorities. There is ability and possibility from China, from Western countries like US, EU, and UK, that convince or at least persuade those countries, not to use their veto in UN Security Council, and proceed with the accountability those general. Because if we fail this general to brought to justice, that will give the signal, green light to other perpetrators to commit the crimes, and we will not able to stop many of them.
What can you tell me about Jeremy Hunt, because he has offered to lend his support? What can you tell me about his recent travels? I'm
very glad that he visited to Burma, and he should meet with the Rohingya leaders in Rangoon as well. And I don't think he has time for it, but also we heard that the military, from the military side, they don't want to meet him, or they refuse to meet. I'm not sure, but thing is, the relationship with him, with the Britain, and with the NLD government is very strong. So at some point they can also change their strategy and approach, but also at the same time they can refer Burma to ICC. They can refer UN to establish a special tribunal. There are many options UK can lead on. When there is something happening, there's a huge crime is committed by the state, we have to stop it immediately.
Action needs to be taken immediately.
Immediately. It's very important, because you see there are 500,000 Rohingyas still remain in Burma, and there are many thousands of Kachin refugees, IDPs in Burma, Shan peoples and Kachin peoples and Karens and many ethnic minorities. They also facing a lots of pressure and persecutions and violence, and they are unable to protect themselves. Burmese military is a very strong army, and they killing and raping. So all this kind of brutalities and cruelties must stop. But how the role of the international community must mainly Britain, because Britain is a pen holder of Burma in UN, and Britain is a former colonial power in Burma. So they have a very strong relationship with Burma historically.
Let's now talk about Aung San Suu Kyi, because she has had an incredible fall from grace. Nobel Peace Prize in 1991. She is now a very controversial figure because she has been totally silent over this genocide. She said absolutely nothing. Recently, she also claimed that the two Reuters journalists who we just spoke about, they weren't jailed because they were doing their job. Do you agree with the UN's report, which says that she, as head of the government, has failed to prevent this genocide?
Her government is a very severe pressure, under the very severe pressure, and they have a very limited mandate. That's one thing, there's reality, everyone knows that. But there is moral duty for every one of us. When there is a crimes, when there is a genocide, when there is any kind of persecution going on, as a Nobel laureate, as a democratic icon, as a national leader, and you see, she failed, especially for stand up for the Muslims. And she, 2015, she asked, she stopped her NLD members, Muslim NLD members, not to join, not to stand up as a candidate for the election. And this gives the signal to the military that she will never stand up for the right of the Muslims. Many times, she come out with a very illogic excuses. So we need to, international community need to push her from out of her comfort zone. She has been.
Could she still make a difference, or is it too late? Could she stand up and be counted and speak out, or are the military too strong for her to come up against?
Of course she can do until now. What she has failed is failed, and people suffered already. But there are more people going to suffer in the future. Because you see, this is the genocide is not only aimed to the Rohingya minorities alone. This is for the mass Muslim population in Burma. And not only Muslim population, it's also Christians and other non-Burmese Buddhists as well. So this is very large and very huge operations and strategy exists in Burma. It is called institutionalized persecution. They have the strategy to eliminate Muslim population in Burma. So how short period the 800,000 have to fled to Bangladesh. So this is happening in other part of Burma. If you look at the other part of Burma, Muslims populations, very few have a citizenship.
Tell me about the Burma Human Rights Network. What do you do there?
Burma Human Rights Network is, we do four main things. One thing is we do monitoring, monitoring on human rights violation across Burma. This include minority rights, freedom of religion, any kind of violence going to happen. So we also have an early warning system that we share with all the contacts, and we documenting all the human rights violations, because there are so many, several human rights violations continuously. If you name it, nothing is everything is possible in Burma, because in urban areas there are so many religious persecutions. Forget about the remote areas. In remote areas, they don't even issue any letter to stop, to close the mosque or to close the madrasas.
It just happens.
They just tell them, come and tell you, stop this.
Mr. Wenwi, thank you for sharing with us your expertise, and we will of course put your details. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again soon. Goodbye.